hard to watch the news and see not only the horrible mistreatment of George Floyd in Minneapolis, but the civil unrest it has brought to our country. Ken Dolan-Del, founder of Green Gate Leadership, joins us today to talk about processing these feelings and how to talk about race with your family. Welcome, Ken.
Hey, Alana, it's great to be with you as always. And it's really good to have white people talking about this. It's something we need to, in my opinion, we need to be talking about. We need to take responsibility for the history that has given white people privileges and access to safety that we're seeing other people in our society don't always have. And so we have had recently the murders of Armaud Arbery in Georgia. Guy was just running, he was jogging. I go jogging all the time out in public, and nobody stops me and tries to detain me and shoots me. And then we have Breonna Taylor, who was simply in her home. She's an emergency medical technician. She was in her home. Police broke in and shot her to death. And then finally, George Floyd, who was entirely cooperative when the police apprehended him. I've seen videos from many different angles, and he ends up being killed. And so these all follow a very long history of disparate treatment of Black and brown people in our society. And so you're seeing this upwelling of protest, most of it peaceful. And that's very important to keep in mind, that most of the protesting is peaceful, and that's a right that's guaranteed to us as American citizens. And these people protest when they don't have any other options, when they're not being heard, whether it's the women's movement or the movement for civil rights or the movements for GLBT rights. This is what happens. And so these are calls for justice that we should all be paying attention to, talking about with our families, and playing a constructive role in as well.
I agree, Ken. They often say that you are your child's first teacher as a parent. And as a parent,
Absolutely.
How can you work to stop this cycle of prejudice that we see repeating in our country?
Well, I think it starts very, very early. Whether or not you demonstrate prejudice in your household, it's all around us. And there's research that shows that at a very young age, 3, 4, 5, kids are picking up the disparate sense of value that is ascribed to people of different skin colors. So right from the beginning, you want to be reading some books with your kids. You want to be talking with them about how beautiful it is that we all have our differences. You want to be talking about differences always in a way that's exciting, that's embracing, that is providing an opportunity for learning from others. And you want to be demonstrating your own commitment to justice. And one of the things I can tell you right now, and I strongly encourage this of all adults, 2 things. One, go to the blacklivesmatter.com site and read what's there. If you haven't done this, you will probably be surprised. There's brilliant writing about all the kinds of differences in our world and how important it is for us to stand up and stand together and raise our voices for a more just world. With our kids, we can do things like watch movies that are going to be helping them to understand these differences in ways that are positive. But for adults, so much of what we teach our kids is through our role modeling. So there's another thing that I think adults should do, and that is to read a book. It's called How to Be an Anti-Racist. It's by an author named Ibram Kendi, and it's absolutely spectacular in terms of its clarity and what it has to say about all of us, about the ways that we are all carrying ideas about difference and bias. And he starts by talking about his own experience. So he doesn't exclude himself from it. He doesn't point fingers. He talks about the reality of the lives that we all live in the U.S. and how to go about making some changes that will create more fairness for everyone.
I imagine it's also important for parents to create empathy with their children and different races. Any good ways to go about doing this?
Well, it's good to have a network of friends who are representing the spectrum of differences, because we know that one of the most important ways that we build empathy is through personal connection. So it would be a good thing for your kid, for your young child, to be a part of a play group that has people, parents and children of all different backgrounds, and to show that we are all human beings, and to talk about our lives in ways that are caring and respectful. And so things like that, that we expose our child to people who have all kinds of differences, come from all kinds of different backgrounds. And if we're in the presence of our child and we hear a joke, whether it's about Black people or brown people or women or people who are on the GLBT spectrum, that we stand up, that we voice our disagreement, that we say, that's not okay with us. The way I see it, everybody is equally valuable, and you can't say those things in my presence and expect not to hear me tell you to stop it. That kind of modeling is really important with our kids when we're in the public world. But also, of course, we want to be listening to our kids. We want to be listening to our kids about their fears and concerns. And when it comes to all of the stuff that they're seeing on TV, and the news media tends to focus on the most violent stuff. So they'll show images of people throwing things back and forth, whether they're flash grenades or water bottles or something even more potentially dangerous. So what you might want to do is show your kids films of some of the peace marches that Martin Luther King was leading, and so that they get a sense of the history behind this, and they get a sense of the centrality of nonviolence, that this is really all about nonviolence, raising our voices in a unified way for the right outcomes, and to tell them that also the bad things that are happening are the minor elements of what's happening in the public right now, and that they're being sensationalized, and actually limit them as best you can. Limit their exposure to those extraordinary images of throwing things and tear gas and all of that.
I love your point of counterbalancing with peaceful protests. I want to thank you for joining me and giving us these ideas during this uneasy time. Thank you so much.
So good to be with you as always, Alana.